as psychotic as it is to admit, and maybe from all the trauma and pain, I hope that none of you are real. Like, that no one's real. That this is all just a dream. And that there's actually a real life that our heart is invested in, more than just struggling to survive and constantly feeling horrible. The only reason I know the contrast of that is because every once in a while I'll have a decent day. And I'm like, why is this so rare? Everyone else seems to have a lot of decent days. What the fuck? You know? I respect myself. I'm a good person. I used to like abase myself and be overly humble and always apologize. Fuck that. After you get shit on by enough people. And people who shit on you, they just disgrace themselves by shitting on you. I mean, I guess I've disgraced myself by shitting on things. But, and I wouldn't call it that. That's a really distasteful way of saying it. But even cursing is a form of expression. For those of you that ick at that. Probably just turned off the video. It's fine. You can not take things so hard if you think it might all just be a video game to test you. To test us in the extremes of how we act under such discomfort and trauma. I think what bothers me the most is just how long it lasts. I don't think it should last as long as it does. But then I also have to take into consideration I've had this kind of chronic depression my whole life. Most of my life. I had a lot of fun times as a kid. Just running around and building tree forts and pretending I'm a hobbit and that the world's completely different. Imagination is my escape. But things are too predictable here. For the infinitude of possibilities there are. This is like such a thin slice of the spectrum. I often feel claustrophobic here. I feel like everything's the same and just repeats itself, but in just a slightly different orientation of everything, or a slightly different arrangement of everything. But it's become quite predictable, even through all my physiological changes. Through my years being sober, through my years getting blazed all the time as a stoner. But actually less so when I was getting stoned all the time, because I was really in my imaginative world. But it's hard to like really be on your game in life when you're constantly baked, so I don't do that as much anymore, because my life is art, even though a lot of it is like really sad. It's not even per se me, it's just situations, such a lousy story compared to what I could have done without being quite so ignorant, or even if I was this ignorant, to at least have more positive experiences and slightly less negative ones. And if I'm going to have a lot of negative ones, I want to at least endogenously be able to not feel so bereft. I want to be able to have fun with it. And I do laugh at my trauma. I feel like after enough trauma, the laughter that comes out is kind of from all that, because you don't know how else to handle it. Just like people that have an abundance of joy, sometimes that causes tears. Happy tears. I think I've had happy tears a few times. But it's always like, part of me is like mourning. It is grieving. Like the dream that could have been. The learning experience that could have been. So you might see this video as just a pity party. And I should grieve. That's actually the appropriate thing to do, in my opinion. But I don't like to live in that state of like I want to persevere. I am resilience in the face of all this crap. And a lot of people are. No, I'm not the only one. I'm not like, I'm the only one struggling here. There's obviously, like, everyone, to varying degrees. Some people have a pretty smooth life. And I'm glad. I think we should have challenges. I'm not saying, like, no challenges. I want challenges and adventure, but not in this disposition. Not in like the wreckage of my dreams and what could have been. I mean, there's so much intricacy in life. It's like you think on like the emotional spectrum and on all those like consciousness spectrums that it would be a little more like the rest of this world, where it's like more detailed and more like a lot of design and advanced technology that this is. It's very advanced. We can't even appreciate how advanced it is. Well, some people can, like a lot of scientists and biologists. They're like fascinated. They're like astounded. That's what keeps them going. They're like, the mystery is profound. The mystery of life and how it just keeps going. And, you know, the mitosis, the constant reproduction of our cells and the renewal of our bodies. That's just constantly happening. But just like we wake up from dreams and we're like, whoa, what was that? And a lot of times I'm like, I'm glad that was a dream. But I have been to this other world many times. I wish I knew more about it. But I've been to the same other world many times. And one contrast I've recognized is just the general default vibe of this other dream world I go to. It's not as heavy as it is here. Like, and I don't think anyone could recognize that unless they went to another place or another world and felt like the default vibe of that place. Because it's hard to recognize something until you experience something else to contrast with it, and you're like, oh, like, there's just not words for that. It's just the felt presence of experience. It's just how it feels, and we can't always describe how it feels, because there's all these words and there's varying degrees of like the feeling of bliss or the feeling of complicated relationship, or like of like the most incredible chemistry you've had with someone. A lot of the same words are used for all of that, so just how potent it can be cannot be expressed in words. Songs, however, we can come a little closer. But even then, there's certain experiences we've had that I wouldn't be able to describe those unless I had been through, or like I wouldn't know what those are unless I had been through them. And I guess that's part of the learning experience here, even though I would choose a different way to learn. And it's actually really helped me just having this perspective, because it's having dignity for yourself, it's having respect for yourself. And going back to what I was originally saying, how, like, is any of this real? How many real souls are there here? Like, all you really know is your own. But I wonder, after this life, is my essence just gonna be, like, dissolved back into the grand consciousness? Like, will who Deja is just be disassembled and, like, not be that anymore? I wouldn't be surprised. But also, that doesn't give me any anxiety. I'm like, I could do a better iteration of this. And I'm not even that, like, knowledgeable on all the different existences. But it's low level enough here. I mean, I could definitely compose something that I could be vested in. Like, I could have my heart in it. Because when you lose heart, like I've talked about in other videos, you're not really fully engaged. Like, how can you do your best in life if your heart is not in it? And that's the case for a lot of people. They lose heart, and then they don't care about things that maybe really have value. I guess it depends on what you derive value from. But I know I'm not the only one to have such a conception of life. But then again, maybe everyone here is real. I have to entertain every idea.